Hello, my name is Silvester Henderson. I am the CEO and president of Professor for Life Incorporated. We have the wonderful opportunity this afternoon to introduce a gentleman that I met when he was a professor and still is one for the graduate division at San Francisco State University. But he has now sort of traveled into what they call the great side. I'm going to say it that way. Some people call it the dark side, but I'm going to call it the great side. I'm so proud of him. He was recently appointed as the president of Chabot College. That is Dr. Jamal Cook. Welcome, Dr. Cook.
Yes, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Man, can you introduce yourself to our digital media academic world? Tell us where you grew up and kind of share your academic journey and where did you go to college? All those wonderful things.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to participate in this. And anytime I have an opportunity to have a conversation with you, and then at the same time be able to talk to academics and educators, I'm always game. So I'm originally from East Oakland. I grew up there. My father was a retired Air Force, and my mother sold Avon, actually. And so just growing up as an only child, from my father, I saw and witnessed an example of hard work, being diligent, committed, provide and protect the family, kind of a piece. And my mother was very social, and she got along with a wide range of people in almost any setting. So I kind of saw how she did that, and so I tried to emulate some of those things as well. Growing up in East Oakland, I went to a very small school called Our Redeemer Lutheran. Right now it's called Unity High School. It's down the street, a block away from Frick, Concordia by Mills College on 61st and Brand. That was also the church that we attended, a Lutheran church. And that was the first group of folks that kind of accepted us in and supported us and became like family. And so I went to that small Lutheran school and was trying to learn to navigate academics and social. And let's just say my mother said that the school got a little too small for me. And
Okay.
and because I was I had a lot of energy. And so I ended up going into Redwood Heights, which was on 35th and MacArthur. Ended up feeding into Montera Junior High School, and then on to Skyline High School. At Skyline, I wanted to be a business major. I wanted to wear our Armani suits. I wanted to have a briefcase. I wanted to have a office on the 50th floor. And by no means was I going to accept any less than $30,000 a year. No less. I had standards, and so I ended up not going into business, but I ended up tutoring. I ended up tutoring when I went to University of California, Berkeley, Cal, and I started tutoring so I could make money to go to school. I share this story sometimes. I applied to University of Pennsylvania, UCLA, and Cal. Those are the only three schools that I applied to. I had a 2.6 for my freshman and sophomore year. I had a 3.8 my junior and senior year. So people saw that and was like, oh yeah, black male, urban area, we're gonna work with them. Well, UCLA never sent me an acceptance letter. And Penn, I was getting recruited for football. I went to a summer program there called the LEAD program through A Better Chance. And it went all the way to the director of undergraduate admissions, and I was denied. And so that was like in June. That was like in June, end of June. And so I caught the 40 going down Foothill, AC Transit. There's some folks from the Bay called Aunt Claire. And I got on the bus and I got off at Cal, and I went and sat in the financial aid office until someone came out and helped me. And it was this woman named Daisy. I do not remember her last name. She had a black salt and pepper beehive, African-American woman. And she said, well, what are you waiting for? I said, I'm waiting to see a counselor. She said, well, everyone's in a meeting. I said, well, I'll just wait. And she said, well, come on back. I'll try to help you. She said, well, she looked on the computer. Well, it says your parents, it says you all make too much money. I said, ma'am, that computer is wrong. She said, well, how is it wrong? I said, my dad might make too much money, but he's not paying for me to go to school. I said, so I don't have any money for tuition. And she said, well, who told you to come here? I said, nobody. She said, well, how did you know to come here? I said, it's financial aid. Y'all give out money, right? And so I think through the conversation, she realized I was very motivated, very spirited, but just needed some help and some direction, some support. So she gave me a Stafford loan and a Perkins loan, both for $1,500. And that is what paid for my tuition at Cal in the late 80s. And I worked 2 and 3 jobs, 20 to 30 hours a week to pay for my bills. And my mom saved my freshman year to pay for my sophomore year, so on and so forth. And so when I came out of Cal, I ended up changing from business and ended up going in education. I taught 7th grade social studies for a couple of years, went to the graduate school to the University of Michigan, got a 2-year master's in 1 year social studies curriculum development. I stayed on for the Ph.D. in language literacy and culture. My research looks at hip hop in the classroom as a teaching tool, teaching culturally relevant pedagogy, working with urban youth, African American males, expository writing, Ebonics, AAVE. That's all the things that I studied. And I came out and worked for San Francisco State as a professor. I was tenured in 2008. I became a full professor in 2015. And some folks listening may be familiar with Asa Hilliard, a famous African American historian. He was tenured in the School of Education because he was in Black Studies, but Black Studies hadn't started yet. So he actually earned his tenure in education in 1968. So I was technically the first African American male to get tenure in the College of Education, and that was in 2008, 40 years later. Which is you think of San Francisco State, that's a long time between Black men earning tenure. And so I then began, during this whole time, I was teaching at Merritt College, teaching English, and also being a track coach at Skyline High School and at Bishop O'Dowd High School. And family. My daughter was born in 2007. My son was born in 2012. And now around 2016, 17, my wife was like, I need you home. I can't have you traveling and presenting and being scholar, Jamal. I need you to be home. I need some help. So I began to look at different options, and it was a really big deal to take on a leap of faith to go from a teaching tenured position for a job for life at San Francisco State to a 2-year administration job on a 1-year contract. That was a big leap of faith. But like in many other areas, as I explained to my wife, if you can't bet on yourself, who are you gonna bet on? So that was I got in and tried to work really hard and learn the ropes and learn the system. And it paid off for me landing the job as the Dean of Language Arts at Chabot College.
You have said a lot in a short amount of time. First, I want to go back to your UC Berkeley days. I did not know that you graduated from UC Berkeley. So you were at UC Berkeley in the mid 80s, the early 80s.
Yep. I know Mario, that sang in the choir.
Yeah, so you were at UC Berkeley during the time I was teaching the gospel choir at UC Berkeley.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And saw you all perform.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yes,
I'm so glad to hear that that's another strong connection. And you may not, I'm sure you know this, but if you don't, you mentioned the greatest university to me in the world, which is San Francisco State University. San Francisco State is where I went to college. So all of my education comes from SF State. I absolutely adore San Francisco State University because that is where I found self-esteem and purpose in life as an African American man. San
Mm,
Francisco State University was the best thing in
mm,
terms of my profession that ever happened to me because not only did they educate me, but growing up in the same environment that you grew up, there were many areas where I was castrated or teased for being an overweight male or a variety of concerns, growing up in the inner city and going to San Francisco State. I never will forget that everybody was pretty much into what they were doing and nobody really cared about your personal infractions.
yeah,
And they were very, very, very supportive. Very, very supportive. I
yeah,
write letters to the Alumni Association all the time. I absolutely adore San Francisco State, and I try to send many students to San Francisco State University because of what they did for me uh, as a professional.
yeah.
Tell me, what are some of the real differences? Now, of course, the responsibilities are differences, but are different, I should say. But what are some of the real differences in working as a college president versus the fact that you still occasionally, I think, throughout the summer or certain sessions, you still teach in the graduate school for the School of Education at SF State, right?
Yes, sir.
On a small basis, because your responsibilities as the college president are so enormous. But what are some of the real differences in terms of just perspectives?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one, to just kind of extend from where we were, once I became the dean of language arts for 3.5 years, that was really a transitional period and really learning the ropes of the community college as an administrator. And then I became the vice president for 2 years, and then now the president at this point for 5 months. And I would say the one piece that changed was just my actual time. I was coaching, I was teaching, I was doing consulting. Right when I was a dean, I was doing all of that. When I became a VP, although my time constraints kind of went down, right? And then now as the president, a lot of 12-hour days, 14-hour days is norm. And so just time is one piece. I think in terms of perspective, what's interesting is that there are so many moving parts that you have to think about. Similarly to coaching, to be honest with you, as a coach, you deal with parents, you deal with the athletic director, you deal with other teams, you deal with the principal, you deal with student athletes, you deal with egos, you deal with, right, there's a lot of different pieces, which means that there's a lot of balls in the air. Well, the same thing is as a administrator of the community college. You're working with faculty, classified professionals, you're working with administrators, you're working with the community, you're working with the city, the district, right? And so I think similar kinds of strategies, but different characters, so to speak. I think in terms of perspectives, as the president, you're the bottom line. You do have final say. However, you have to keep in mind what's good for the entire college and not just one aspect, not just one person, not just one area. And so many times when people are looking at a situation from a single lens, they think that the answer is easy. But if I have multiple situations with multiple lenses, then I have a lot to consider. And I think one of the ways that you have things move in this particular way as with the college is you have to have good relationships. You got to be able to talk to people. You got to be able to listen. You got to be able to have some empathy, right? You have to be able to make connections with people. And I think that that's a lost art sometimes, that we don't always keep that as a central focus as administrators and as leaders. I mean, as I talk about leadership, right, there's all kinds of supervisors, managers, administrators, and a lot of those folks follow policies. They know the contract in and out. They do what kind of take orders and kind of do what the paper says. When you're a leader, when I think of leadership, I think of being creative. I think of pushing the boundaries. I think in terms of having other people follow you as you're moving a project, program, or in this case, an institution or a college forward. If a leader has followers, then they're exemplifying true leadership. If a leader doesn't have followers, then we have to examine the leadership to see why people are not following. And many times I think it comes down to communication, comes down to trust, it comes down to authenticity at its root. And I think as the president, I would say I try to maintain those three kind of standards, kind of pillars, the same ones I had when I was teaching when I started tutoring, when I started teaching junior high school, when I was teaching at the community college, when I was teaching at the 4-year school. Those are the three things that I think were paramount in my success, and I'm still using those from the dean to the VP to the president role.
It sounds like the leadership is really an extension of an effective classroom in terms of how, if you are a real good educator in the classroom, you may not have as much responsibility, but if you are teaching a multiplicity of students with different learning levels, you have to approach them from a standpoint of humility. Someone said to me many years ago that policies are important, but policies are minor, but people are major.
Yes, sir.
And so I appreciate your perspective. Could you explain to our audience what classes during your, I don't want to say spare time, but doing your additional obligations, what are some of the classes that you teach at San Francisco State, and how has it been teaching those courses now as an administrator, and who influenced you to become an academic administrator in the California community colleges?
Yeah, great question. So maybe I'll start backwards. I started teaching in our inaugural program in 2007. I wasn't even tenured yet. I was putting in my paperwork to become tenured, which was official in 2008, which actually, strangely enough, caused a little stir because a lot of senior faculty members wanted to teach in the program, and some of them weren't chosen. And I was chosen, I was told, because of my exemplary marks and feedback from my teaching. So that was very interesting. And so I think since 2007, I've trained or taught, I don't know, what is that, 15 times 20, what is that, over 300 leaders, and over half of them have been community college leaders that are now, that are directors, that are coordinators, that are VPs. I'm trying to think of anyone I know, that are presidents. I have a couple of former students that are presidents, right? So it's interesting to do that. And so when I was thinking about what was the next step in my growth and in my development professionally, the community college just kind of made sense, right? To be able to go into an administrative role and to be able to be caring, empathetic, open, and to kind of keep the student first, so to speak, as an administrator. So that was why I went into administration, was simply, I believe that I have a insight on what our students need and how they need it. And by being in an administrative role, my job is to get them what they need to be successful academically and in terms of the workforce. The courses that I've taught range, but have been primarily literacy across the content areas. Um, uh, a master's course seminar, popular culture for teachers, um, American educational research, language and literacy. I teach those in the summer. And then also leadership courses as well. So those are just to name a few.
Well, in your research, can you describe some of your research ideas, your personal research ideas, and how your findings have improved learning for students of color, or just students in general?
Yeah, great question. So my early work was around hip hop in the classroom. So I was looking at hip hop in the classroom in the late 90s. I stumbled upon this line of research because in 93, I was teaching 7th grade social studies, and I found that my students were really bright, they were engaged, they were motivated, and they could talk a whole lot. They could tell you everything we read and give some stories and examples. But when it came to writing, we were having trouble at times putting together subject, verb, predicate. And I just found this amazing. And so as a teacher, one lesson I said, okay, your assignment is going to be, you can write an essay, but instead of an essay, you can do a poem, you can do a short story, you can do a rap. And I will tell you that maybe to this day, those may have been some of the most inspiring presentations that I've had from any group of students then and since then. And so that's what made me look and explore hip hop in the classroom, popular culture as a teaching tool, not only to interest them into the reading aspect, but also into building expository writing skills. And my work has been used nationally, internationally, actually, for the last 20 something years, whether it was through my articles, through curriculum guides I created, my professional development. And so I feel very fortunate that I've been able to make a mark on the K-12, particularly the secondary level, as it pertains to language, literacy, and culture. At the community college level, teaching English 1 or English 5, let's say the college transfer English, right? I feel I've been able to make an impact on that level as well, to take students who may have had some challenges in writing and to over a semester build their skill sets so that they could not only become successful while they were still in community college, but then also to be able to be successful at the 4-year in terms of reading strategies, in terms of writing and expository writing, in terms of presentation skills.
Wow. You know what? You're such a unique person. I could tell when I first met you that you were a real quality academic. Very few administrators have the instructional acumen that you possess. And I think that's one of the challenges in the California Community College. I don't want you to respond to this. Let me respond to this one.
Yes, sir.
It's really nice to hear an administrator have knowledge in the classroom. I've been arguing that point for many, many years, that I sometimes wonder, how can you be a leader over something that you have no point of reference about? I have said this in major conferences. People don't like it a lot of times, but I still say it. And so it's so nice to hear you talk, because you are a complete academic. Tell me, what do you think are some of your most significant research or work accomplishments around curriculum and instruction? And how does it tie into administration?
Yeah, good question. I would actually say the two that I just gave around working at the K-12 level, doing um, lots and lots of traveling across the country and even internationally to talk about how to write and what people are looking for. And I would say even to be academically successful, and I would even say at the community college, one of the assignments I would have was a like a statement of purpose. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What are you like? So we would, in my English classes, that would be one of the first assignments, and I would use that as a first assignment because that would allow me to learn more about them and what they were bringing into the classroom. But it was also a way for me to give them something, for them a gift, so to speak, when they leave the classroom, to be able to have that statement of purpose, to use it as a cover letter for a job, to be able to use it as part of their application when they applied to a 4-year school. Excuse me. And I think because I've gone through the instructional side in the community colleges as a dean of language arts, where I had the English department, sign language, ESL, world languages. Those are some pretty heavy and tough subjects, and people that have that are very strong in what they do and how they teach and about pedagogy. And so even as a VP, I preached to and repeated all the time, talking about we have to be about curriculum, instruction, and assessment. That's what we do. Curriculum, instruction, and assessment. If we're not very good at that, we're not very good at what we do. So that's right. People are either coming to get those things, to get a job, to get a certificate, or to potentially transfer. So when you ask the question around how being a teacher, a faculty member, an instructor, how that impacts my perspective as the president, I recognize that our product is what's going on in the classroom, right? As a college, we can have basic needs, we need them, and we can have athletics, and we need them. But what goes on in the classroom is what's most vitally important. And so I work diligently with everyone across campus, because it's not just instructional folks that have an impact on instruction, it's everyone. And we talk about what are we providing for students in the sense of curriculum, instruction, and assessment that will have them be successful and leave Chabot with a very positive outlook that they then tell other folks, hey, you know what? The same way that you just talked about what you learned at San Francisco State,
That's right.
we want them to say those same things about Chabot, that they learned about themselves, that they learned from others, that they got the best instruction curriculum-wise and pedagogically from the Chabot Community College than they would in anywhere else in the rest of their lives. That's what I want them to be able to say about Chabot.
Wow. You know what? Wow. This conversation could go on, but I have just a couple of more questions. I appreciate you so greatly. I wish we could duplicate you. You know, that may have made me stay working a little longer, because you are.
I appreciate that.
And I've been teaching a long time, but it's very rare to find an administrator that has so much knowledge, and they really have the ability to take all of their power and transfer it back to the main element of the institution, which is curriculum and instruction. Somehow that has been lost in so many, I would say, higher education landscapes. Tell me your work, because you also, as you are not just supporting all students, but being a person of color, you sort of are an example for a lot of other men and women of color, and that deals with social advocacy. So kind of share information about your work as a social advocate and administrator for communities of color.
Yeah, great question. So I would say prior to being an administrator, I've always been a community activist, a family advocate, and working with in the community to help students of all ages be successful. So that's always been who I've been, because I've also recognized that without having mentorship, without having people that care about you, without having someone that says, hey, I'm not worried about where you've been, I'm only concerned about where you are right now, and I'm going to help move you in this right direction. I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation if it wasn't for a handful of people that did that with me. So I've just always given back in that way. And I feel like as an administrator, there's no need for that to change. There's no need for that to change. As an administrator, I would say my first real taste of that was the Black Excellence Collective 10 by 10 that Dr. Jeannie Wilson and I co-constructed, where we had 2,000 African-American students at Chabot, and we created 10 villages with 10 members in each village that were counselors, a couple of students, instructors, classified professionals, faculty, and their job, each of the village's job was twofold. One was to work and support those 200 students in their village, and then also take one aspect, one barrier to African American students and work on that for a year to try to come up with solutions, right? So from that, we had a number of African American students, and this happened as a result of George Floyd, right? George Floyd was May 25th of what was that, 19, I believe, and 1920. No, that was of 20, because we had just started COVID, and that helped maintain students to stay in school. They felt supported. It also became the basis for what we're currently beginning to do with our guided pathways with our student success teams. We learned some things about barriers to students, to African American students, which also ended up being barriers to a variety of different students. And so we began to work on deconstructing those barriers. And so I would say, as the president, what ends up happening is that you get a lot of requests. You get a lot of requests for a lot of stuff from a lot of different people, a lot of different groups. And in my mind, my belief is there's enough sunlight at Chabot for everyone to shine. There's enough for everyone. We just have to figure out and identify what does everyone need. And so, African-American students, we have a Black Cultural Resource Center now, right? And that's a space for Black students to go to. We have something called El Centro, which is for our Latinx students and some of our undocumented students and dreamers, right? So we based on cultural affinity groups, everyone doesn't need the same thing, right? That's why we believe in equity and giving everyone what they need, as opposed to equality, just throwing everybody the same thing. We actually identify what our different cultural and affinity groups need on campus, and we work diligently to be able to fulfill their needs to ultimately be able to have successful students.
Wow. Tell me, Dr. Cook, what challenges do you feel that you faced as a man of color in higher education? I know that, we all have challenges, but maybe mention one or two, and I'll kind of share with our audience in terms of how you sort of overcame those challenges.
Yeah. I'll say one, being authentic. I think when I say authentic, I mean a range. I'm the ends and everything in between. So for me, authentic doesn't mean just one style of dress or one way to speak or one way to be, right? For me, the range is being able to adapt to the different settings that I'm in, but while remaining an anchor of ultimately who I am. in all of those different settings. I think a second way to think about it, to be honest with you, in terms of challenges, is I think one of the main ones is that many people have not engaged with a African American man with a PhD, with higher education, with a range of experiences in their particular workplaces. So, in some sense, I don't get upset or angry about it because they haven't had experience with it. So part of what we're going to do when we work together is we're going to learn from one another. We're going to learn about one another, because if the primary purpose is about making the institution the best we can for students and student success, and if our goal is to make this place, in my case, Chabot, a destination place where people want to work for the college, and if our goal is to get people to come in and get the certificates and be able to matriculate so that they can go and find jobs with livable wages to pay for themselves and their families, then whatever we got going on don't really matter. We don't have time not to get along and to be concerned. Like, we're going to learn about each other, with each other, for the ultimate purpose of those students to go work, those students to be able to have to transfer, and for those employees to have a great, safe place to come and work.
Wow. You speak very kindly, but very effectively. Thank you. Can you share some of the tasks that you've accomplished in regards to improvement for protected class of students, especially as we deal with the current gender movement? How do you, what are some of the things that Chabot College has done to help the students feel comfortable in our current gender movement that we are in nationally?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I think so. We have a group on campus. I believe it's called Queen. That's the newer name, if I'm not mistaken, with our LGBTQ plus communities. And I'll say, within my first, I don't know if it was August or maybe it was September, I went to one of their meetings and I said, "Hey, look, I just want to let you know I'm here. I am here to hear from you, to hear what your needs are." There was a document that was made a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, around gender neutral bathrooms, people using pronouns in public settings. There was something around name changes, official name changes. My point to them was, I have that list. I'm here when you want to talk about it, how you want to talk about it, because ultimately it's about everyone on our campus feeling safe and feeling supported. So that's on one piece. I would also say I would be remiss if I didn't. I know you were asking about gender politics, but I'm also going to talk about groups on campus that and kind of unique support. We have a RISE program, which is for our formerly incarcerated students.
Excellent.
And those students come on campus. We have a program for them. They get books, free books. We give them the whole everything. We have teachers and instructors that are RISE friendly, meaning that although we may not have enough for a particular cohort, they work with our program and they support our RISE students. I'm very excited that we have the RISE program. It has now been extended where we are teaching college courses in Santa Rita. And so we were right about to do that right before COVID happened. COVID happened in March. We were supposed to go in April. So we've had to wait pretty much 3 years. And we just went in this past spring, which I'm ecstatic about. And we were teaching 2 and 3 classes in the, I believe it was English and ethnic studies, and a PSCN, kind of like a study skills kind of course. We're looking to expand those course offerings in the fall. In next spring. And what's unique about this program is someone can be in Santa Rita on Thursday, get out over the weekend, and they can get in that same instructor's class on that next Tuesday or that next Monday. Seamless. We have a plethora of mental health services. We have a Gladiator student hub where we're about to open up. We closed our bookstore. We're using that physical space for basic needs with counseling, academic counseling, mental health counseling. Our food pantry is going to be in there. I'm really excited that we're adding a component of a dress to success piece. So if students need clothes for interviews, there's going to be a portion of that in the back as well. There's also going to be a lactation room as well. We want to provide everything and anything that we possibly can to support our students in our local community and our employees. And so I'm ecstatic about it. We have $100 million library that'll be finished in May that we're going to be able to move into. So next fall, after we move in the summer, next fall is the biggest, tallest building on campus. It'll be our newest building. And I think these kinds of programs, these kinds of projects are what I'm excited about in infusing energy and engagement and a spark around the campus. And so I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cook. You know, my final question, first of all, before I ask my final question, however, I want to go back and say that I am so honored and so grateful to be able to speak with you. We spoke on many occasions, but especially on this one, because, you know, I'm able to ask specific questions. And as senior, I should say, it is such a honor to me to speak with such an auspicious gentleman because, you know, life was so different. I look at the community college and look at all the resources that the students have. Oh God, when I started back in college in 1977, we didn't have any of these resources.
Yeah.
Nothing was available like that.
Yeah.
But the thing that was consistently available, even though we didn't have financial, I never received a scholarship through my whole education. I paid every aspect of my college education myself, from cutting grass, playing the piano, doing a variety of things. I had a yearning desire to finish college. Even though I never had the sort of, I would say, system-wide support, I'm grateful that San Francisco State University offered me one thing, and that was they had an equitable character. They had an equitable character as an institution because they offered me a sense of love and care. And that, to me, is what the community college really is trying to do to so many students, to release the concept. Kind of like, I've said this over and over, that I look at the community college very much like a church minus theology, you know, like a big old congregation, community congregation, where people could come to have all their needs met. The only difference is we don't necessarily talk about theological principles. We talk about humanity more generally. And so you offer so much kindness and so much information that I want to just congratulate you and say, I am so proud of you. And I've told you that over and over, but I'm really proud of you. And I'm really proud that you've joined the aggregation of leaders for the California community colleges. I won't be around in an employed capacity, but I will always be around in the cheering capacity, because, you know,
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I just want to say to you that congratulations to you on your career, on your retirement, and all the mentoring and conversations and support that you give so many people in the background that people would have no idea. And I think that although you don't do it for the accolades, although you don't do it for the hand claps and everything, I just want to take this time to say thank you, not only on behalf of those folks, but for myself personally. I shared with my assistant today. She said, "Oh, I didn't know what this appointment was. Who is this? What is this?" And as I was explaining to her, I said, "You know what?" I said, "This is one of the first people that lobbied for me to come to the community college. This is the first person that made it make sense as to not what I should do, but why I should do it." And I really appreciate that. This would not be the final conversation, recorded or not recorded. But I do appreciate the opportunity to come on and to share with you and to share with others, and to just say thank you for the work that you've done. And I know you're not finished. I know you're not done. I know it's not complete. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do in your next chapter as well.
Well, I know I'm going to keep teaching part-time. My goal is to teach part-time for the Peralta Community College District and to help build a gospel music performance certificate program that I put together, which is one of the only ones of its kind anywhere in the country. And then, I'm starting to do a lot more public speaking. And so those are two things I want to concentrate on as I continue to develop those areas. And I want to do a lot of stuff through the church now. Through my church, we support education highly at the Promise Baptist Church. And, I like throwing community galas and programs and things such as that. Let me ask you, please share your final thoughts or ideas that you would like to communicate to our digital world, and discuss some of your goals, future projects, and new innovations for Chabot College.
Yeah, there's a lot, but I'll keep it brief. I think one is around. I'm really contemplating this idea of service, community service, civic responsibility, and leadership. I'm thinking about where the synergy is between those three, and how we might be able to capsulate that and use that as something an initiative of some sort on campus, right? There are a lot of people that did not have great experiences in school or educational agencies. There's a lot of folks that grew up kind of in tough environments, and that there are other folks that live some really hard lives. And so what some of the research talks about is that giving and service is a way of healing, is a way of empowerment for those individuals. And so I'm thinking about something around leadership, civic responsibility, and community service. So that's all I'll share on that piece. I don't know what it's going to look like, but when I do, I will definitely reach out and share that. I think another part is, as we talk about workforce development, how we begin to what we've been starting to talk about is how do we start changing the narrative and the language around workforce development and getting jobs, and ending it right there with a period. I'm talking about how do we develop workers to go into the workforce for careers, and what do those careers look like? Not the going down and working at the local store or retail or the car shop, but how do we funnel more people into long-lasting careers, and changing the narrative about jobs, or we're just filling up the workforce. And I think a third one, and most important, is trying to shift the narrative about what's possible at community college. Right? We have dual enrollment going on right now, where high school students can earn college credits. How do we leverage that so that it's seen as an advantage to have those courses and to take those courses. And maybe we might have to stay off of the PlayStation a couple of extra hours during the week, right? Maybe we don't go to that weekend function, or maybe we don't watch Netflix on that night, and maybe we just kind of take a class. And you take a class once a semester, a couple in the summer, right? To be able to graduate from high school and graduate from high school and going to college as a junior, and ultimately saving 20, 30, 40, 80, $100,000, right? What might that look like? What might it look like if if in the community we begin to stop thinking about and perpetuating the story that community college is less than, that community college is 13th grade, that community college is, not for everyone. The community college can be for everyone, and it doesn't matter whether you go to a 4-year, a 2-year trade, whatever. You got to have a plan. And if you have a plan, and you have dedication, and you have commitment, and you have consistency, you are going to be uberly successful no matter where you are. So those are some of the things that we're working on at Chabot, and there's many more, but that last one I think is really, really, really key about how can you turn going to a community college into an asset, into an advantage, and not thinking about it in a deficit mindset. And so that's one of the things we're really working on.
Well, as the CEO and president of Professor for Life Incorporated, that interviews not only professors but leaders and great personalities all around the country, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule with your job and your wife and your family and all that you do, just to allow me to have a space to interview you. You are not only a unique man, you are a learned man, but I'm going to leave you with what you just said. You are a successful man, and I appreciate you kindly. God bless you. Thank you for coming on to this broadcast, and it'll be published soon. And Merry Christmas to you, your family, and your communities.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Appreciate you.
God bless you now. Bye-bye now.